Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. Erev Shabbos is always stressful, no matter how late Shabbos comes in. A lot of manias. You see, I'm not in full formal attire for this year. A lot of running around, and you'll see the camera quality is not my regular one. I'm having a computer glitch. I have to do this on my phone. But, it just shows, manias just shows that we're fighting the Sitra Achra. We're doing, and we spoke about this many times before. I'm going to give over a very special piece that I never said. I don't know if I ever said it over orally. Baal Peh. I wrote it up years ago, and I think this might be the very first time I'm saying it. I don't recall it having it recorded. But it's something which I wrote up in a Parsha sheet quite a while ago, before COVID. And it's very fundamental. It has to do with a very big yesod of how Torah Shebaal Peh works, the dynamics of Torah Shebaal Peh, and it's all. We're doing this very special shir that should be a schus for Yaakov ben רינה. Yaakov ben רינה should have a בתושח Yisrael. Betושח Yisrael. Everyone should have refuahs. Everyone should have their refuahs, their yeshuas. Yeah, everyone needs something, and it's close to the shir. Hopefully, we are, being mamshech good things by being mamshech real havana. Okay, so we're going to, tackle this in context of some cryptic midrashim in this week's parsha, Parshas Behaaloscha. So. There's a lot on the menorah in this week's parsha, in the midrashim, in the Medrash Rabbah, so much. And we're going to talk about the third Medrash Rabbah. So the third Medrash Rabbah in this week's parsha points out that, that it says regarding the menorah, it's miksha, which really means it's like a solid piece of gold, solid hammered piece of gold. But the Medrash Darshit is, miksha as in ma kasheh. Oh, so difficult. It's so difficult. Miksha Tiasa menorah was so difficult to make the menorah, is how it says to read it, that Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time understanding how it's to be made. Hashem said it should be made with the cups and the buttons and the flowers, and he found it hard, very found. So Harbe Yagaba, Moshe Rabbeinu just like toiled on it. It was hard, really hard, trying to figure it out. All right. So the Medrash says, at one point after toiling so hard, Hashem says, just forget it, Moshe. Just throw the gold into the fire, and poof, it popped out. It just popped out. Right. 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 So now, how so? There's two versions in the Medrash that of how the menorah made itself. Right. So one says that it's that he threw it in, and what came out, right, was that it's self-made. Kaftorel, kaftorel, prachel, mimena hayu. Its cups, its buttons, and bars were from it, and the menorah made itself. All right, and so one description is that so he softened up the hammer, softened up the gold, and just one zetz of the hammer, boom, and it just made itself. Just with one zetz of the hammer that Moshe Rabbeinu lobbed on it, it just formed from that impact into the right formation, the intricate formation of the menorah, right? And all right, so. And that's the right. So that's it. So the miksha ti aseh. It was hard and ti aseh. You could read it. It has that extra yud. It was made by itself because it was so hard. It just made it by itself. It was made by itself. So hard, so it had to be made by itself. So one lashon is that it was made by itself because Moshe Rabbeinu gave it a zetz with a hammer, and it just self-formed just from that hit. But there's another version in the Medrash, right? And that is that Moshe Rabbeinu just threw the gold into the fire, and Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, Ribon Shalom, right? I threw it in the fire. However you want it should be done. And the menorah popped out, fully formed. So in this slightly altered version, Moshe is not even hitting with the hammer. He's just throwing it in, davening Hashem, I did all I can. I just threw it in the fire. You finish it. Interesting. Common denominator of, the menorah actually having made itself, but, with Moshe Rabbeinu hitting it with the hammer, or even without that, just throwing it in the fire and saying, let it just be, right? Right. As I said, Cain Asa doesn't say Cain Asa Moshe, Cain Asa menorah. As Hashem Shabbat, Cain Asa, the son of menorah was made. Doesn't say so Moshe made it. Menorah made itself, right? So now, we have this, then the Medrash ends off after giving these two alternate accounts, similar, but this big difference of whether the menorah was totally self-made, all Moshe did was throw it in the fire, or he also hit it with the hammer, right? But the Medrash ends off with this message, right? That so also, Hashem says to Moshe, right? You see what the menorah is, be very careful to light it, because the menorah is called a candle, and the soul of a man is called candle. Shneimar ner Hashem nishmas adam, right? Right. So therefore, Behaaloscha says, be careful to raise up the candles. It's very important. Very important. Raise up the candles. And we have another shear of why the verb of raise up is used for lighting, and that's another shear that we have. But let's stay on this topic. So I say, got to be very careful. Be very careful. If you light the candles of the menorah, I will guard your souls. And that's so, of course, it was being Mizarsim, because just like the menorah's candles, your soul is a candle. So if you keep the mitzvah of menorah, Behaaloscha neros, I will guard your souls. Right? All right. So we have a lot of questions over here. What does one have to do with the other? Right? That because the menorah made itself, because the menorah made itself, therefore, because the menorah made itself, therefore the message, the menorah is the candle and your soul is the candle. Keep the menorah and I keep your souls. You want to stay safe, you want to guard your soul, light the candles, because they're both called candles. What does that have to do with the idea that the menorah made itself? Ma kesher, right? And then there's still understanding these two different alternate, right, versions of, whether Moshe actually hit it, right? Did he go that far as also pounding on the gold, or not even that? Just threw it into the fire and said, Hashem, however you want it, make it. Right? And the Medrash just says them together as if there's no contradiction. Whether it happened this way, happened that way. That's something to think about. It must be that they're both true. Either could be true. And we're going to discuss that. So there's the account. Did he actually hit it with the hammer? Did he go even that far, or not even that far, and just threw it into the fire and out it popped? And what does this have to do with the message? And therefore, you see what the menorah is. You better keep the menorah, because the menorah is candles and the soul is the candles. Keep the menorah. I guard your souls, right? Which are called ner Hashem nishmas adam. Okay. But there's yet another, right? Another example, right? Right. So the there's a shita that the menorah just came down from heaven. Now, how did it come down from heaven? So the Medrash says, there's another Medrash this week's parsha, right? Hashem said, make it, and Hashem said, you got to hammer it out of hard piece of gold. And Moshe came down from the mountain, right, and said, what's that again? So he goes back to Hashem, right? How do I do this, right? Hashem says, this is how you do it, miksha tasa, but Moshe still found it difficult, right? And he thought he understood it, came down from the mountain and forgot how to do it, right? Just keep on, learning, not understanding, learning, not understanding. So it's a little bit different over here. It talks about like his not understanding or forgetting, Right? So what does Hashem say? Right? Go to Bezalel. He'll make it. So Moshe went to Bezalel. He described, he remembered the Pesukim that Hashem told him about how it's supposed to be constructed. Right? And Bezalel just made it. He chopped immediately and just, made it. So in this version, Moshe again finds it difficult, misunderstands, forgets, right? And in this case, Bezalel makes it. Right? Bezalel makes it. Right? And so Moshe Rabbeinu asks, he's amazed. Right? I heard this from Hashem like a lot of times, and I just couldn't chop it, whether understand it, retain it, and you just made it. Right? So Moshe Rabbeinu, after processing the amazement, says to Bezalel, right? Your name is Bezalel, which could be read Betzel Kel, the shadow of Hashem. You must have been standing in the shadow of Hashem when he showed me how to make it. Right? That's what he says. It's amazing. Hashem explained to me 100 times, or whatever, how many times, and I couldn't chop, couldn't grasp it, couldn't retain it, whether I didn't understand it, couldn't grasp it, couldn't retain it. And, you just made it. You must have been in the shadow of Hashem when he was instructing me. That's what it says. Right? Right? You must have been in the shadow of Hashem. Right? And then, the Medrash ends off with the following message. And therefore, when the Beis Mikdash was nechrav, right, the menorah was hidden. It wasn't captured or destroyed. The menorah was dignaz. So first, you could say it's talking about Bayis Rishon. That's the koch of the menorah of Bayis Rishon. But I've heard it said that this medrash applies even to Bayis Sheni and the big menorah that you see on Teacher's Arch, in Rome. It's a decoy. It's not the real menorah. Variety doesn't really look like the menorah as we know it, as it ought to look, right? But we want to say either way that because of this dynamic that Moshe had difficulty and Bezalel just made it. That's the reason why the menorah by Korban Bayis wasn't captured or destroyed. It was nignaz. It was hidden, and it's out there somewhere. The menorah is still out there. Right? What does that have to do with anything? So we have now a whole bunch of ways. Well, how do we reconcile this third account of how the menorah was made? That Moshe, to come down between all of them, Moshe has difficulty, right? And now in this third version, Bezalel makes it. And with this third version of Bezalel making it, and he's Betzel Kel, whatever that means, got to explain that. You must be in the shadow of Hashem, right? Right? And because of that, the menorah is nignaz. It's too holy, can't be captured, right? And, so when the Beis was destroyed, it was nignaz. It went into hiding. It's out there. It's still shining somewhere, wherever it is, right? And it's all because Bezalel made it and Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't. It's like, what's the connection, right? So, these are these are all our questions. Okay, so now we already said, both in the title for this year, in the byline, and we said at the beginning of today's session, right? And I'm not going to, go into all the proofs as to why this is, but just take it on faith right now, that the menorah represents Torah Shebaal Peh. And this is, it's in all its form. This is not my chiddush. You'll find this in all its form. The Orah menorah is the Torah Shebaal Peh, right? The light of the Torah Shebaal Peh. It's because it's the light that we light, right? That's Torah Shebaal Peh. That's in the people. That's Torah Shebaal is in books, and it exists outside of people. People have to go and learn it. Torah Shebaal Peh is in our mouths. It comes out of our mouths. That's Behaaloscha Saneros, right? Torah Shebaal Peh is inside the people, and it shines out of our mouths. That's Bala. We raise up the candles. That's to our mouths, shine the light of Torah. So as the Gemara says, Psach picha v'ya'iru dvarecha. Open up your mouth and your words will shine. Right? That's Torah Shebaal Peh, is represented by the Or HaMenorah. Okay. All right. So, it's like we said, we light the candles. We're the ones who project the Torah Shebaal Peh. Right? It's housed inside of us and it's revealed, we raise it up. Right? It's Behaaloscha, so we speak the Divrei Torah Shebaal Peh. Okay. So now, and then we know that, Torah Shebaal Peh is in people because that's why it's constantly expanding. Torah Shebaal, that's in books, and the books haven't grown. Ever since Nevuah stopped, the Nevuah Shehutzcha L'Dor stopped, so Torah Shebaal hasn't grown. There's no new Nevuah Shehutzcha L'Dor, but Torah Shebaal Peh is still going because Torah Shebaal Peh is in the Jewish collective. Okay? And that's the sort of lo nichrosa brisal dvarim shebaal peh, our real living bond with Hashem that's forever and ever and ever, right? That's the Torah Shebaal Peh. That's the Torah that's forever new, forever fresh, forever active. That's the ikar bris between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the living covenant, not a covenant that was, a covenant that is. Right. Okay. So now let's talk about this now. Torah Shebaal Peh. Is it ours or is it God's? We say it's in the people. We have to understand the dynamic. If it's Torah, it's Dvar Hashem, right? Beside Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, right? The words of Beis Shammai, are both divrei Elokim Chaim, the word of the living God, but it's divrei Beis Shammai, divrei Beis Hillel. Right? God knows what He wants. Why are they having machloikas? You say Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, right? If it's Torah and not something that was concocted by man, right? So it should be Hashem's, right? It should be Hashem's, right? And I should have no creative rights to it, which we seemingly do, but it's not just creative rights; it's ownership. Right? The halacha is that a Talmid Chacham could be moichel al kvoidoi, and the Gemara asks, "What do you mean? Is it his Torah? If you have to honor you because of the honor of the Torah, let me to put this to make understand this, right? As an example, Melech shemochel al kvodo en kvodo mochel. Right? A king cannot forgive and be moichel on his covenant. Yeah, no, he's not allowed to. Because the covet is not his; it's the covet of the nation. It's not his covet to forgo, right? Say, Michael, a king can't be Michael. Because his honor is the honor of a nation. It belongs to Klal, so it can't be Michael. Okay, so you would think the same thing should be by Torah. If the honor that you give a Talmid Chacham is because of his Torah, the Torah is God's Torah, so it should be not his to be Michael, right? And the Gemara says, in Torah Dilehu. In Torah, but Torah so. Yeah, in his Torah, he toils day and night. He speaks day and night. All right? It's much to the point that has halach of being ours. You could be moch on your covet. Or how about the Nitzchuni Bonai? Nitzchuni Bonai. That's some base. Rabbi Yeshua got up and said, Lo Bashamaymi, and Hashem laughs and says, you guys, you beat me. You beat me. How do you pull that off? It's God's Torah, right? And it belongs to us. And we could even argue on Hashem with it. How does it work? Is it Torah? If it's Torah, then it's not ours. It's Hashem's words. And if, how is it like both? It's God's Torah, and yet, it's called ours, right? And we also have creative rights to it, to the point that we can argue on the way Hashem, as it were, learns. Think about this, right? So let's understand this. Let's break this down. Right? So now, let's we're still burning off the cheesecake from Shavuos. I know I'm still struggling with it. I know I said this last week. But what can I tell you? We're still burning it off, right? So let's talk about Shavuos. We're still burning off the cheesecake from Shavuos, right? We are told, right, that that everything that any Evil Rosh, Talmud Vasik, Shol Rabbah, anything, any divrei Torah from all future generations, even what a Talmud is going to ask his Rebbe, or all the divrei Seifrim, everything was Nizgala L'Moshe. It's a Gemara Megillah, your Testament base, right? It's throughout Chazal, every Komash Talmud Vasik, everything. Moshe Rabbeinu, right, was right, shown all of Torah. Okay, simple question. If all of Torah for all generations was shown to Moshe, why is there so much machlokes? We should have a Messiah on everything, on exactly what the paskin, on all shilas, the shilas that were, the shilas that are. We should have like some stuff that we may not understand. We should have like a wealth of information. Of future shilas, answers to future shilas, right? Moshe was shown all this stuff. Where is it? We don't have enough information from him to, make it through the day. We're having machlokas constantly, and we're always finding new things to have a suffix about that have to be paskin. And yes, and sadly, not everyone sees it the same way, even on things, like tefillin, and we had already for thousands of years. It just keeps on going. Why? We should have all the answers already if Moshe was shown all the answers. Right? What's going on? Right? So, now of course, this is all in Torah Shebaal Peh, right? We don't have any doubts about Torah Shebaal, because Torah Shebaal is the words, the black and white. The black and white never changed, right? Fighting over interpretation, right? That's Torah Shebaal Peh, fighting over interpretation. Interpretation is Torah Shebaal Peh, right? So, this question, is all on Torah Shebaal Peh, Torah Shebaal, the black and white never changed, and we know exactly what the black and white, states, literally. So he said, well, how to interpret it? Okay, that's Torah Shebaal Peh. So, this question about, the machlok, all the machlokas is in Torah Shebaal Peh. All the sfeikas is in Torah Shebaal Peh, right? All the chidushim is in Torah Shebaal Peh, right? Obviously. All right, so all these questions that we're asking is a question about Torah Shebaal Peh, all these paradoxes. Hashem's word, yet in our mouth, it's his Torah, but it's our Torah, right? It's his Torah, but we can even argue on him. It was all shown to Moshe already, and yet we act as if we're discovering, we'll fight over everything as if it's the first time, right? Every machlokas, right? As if, there's no communication about this prior, right? Right. So now it's time to start, unpacking all this. So to understand, what Moshe Rabbeinu found so difficult about the menorah, so difficult, and Hashem didn't help him. Think about this for a second, right? Moshe Rabbeinu found it difficult. Why didn't Hashem help him? He's not hopping. Well, change his brain. Change Moshe Rabbeinu's brain. Infuse his mind with knowledge. Right. After all, he's getting it all b'nevuah. So b'nevuah is a revelation. Okay. So, magnify the nevuah, and then make it clear to him. It's like Hashem's not changing that. Right, seemingly Hashem is not, responding to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu is not getting the communication. But perhaps, the difficulty that Moshe Rabbeinu had with the menorah, right, was is not limited to the physical structure of the menorah. It is merames on something much deeper and much more fundamental, which the menorah is a living mashal for, and therefore it's also literal about the menorah because of what the menorah really represents, which was the real difficulty here. Moshe Rabbeinu has a problem with Torah Shebaal Peh in general, right? The phenomenon. all these kashas that we had, that we just laid out. To Moshe Rabbeinu is there, it's all the word of Hashem because he gets it directly from the mouth of Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu just having it all from the mouth of Hashem does not live in I don't want to call it illusion because it is as real as we are, but he doesn't live in the reality of Torah Shebaal Peh as if being generated from the people, as the way it seems, as if the rabbis seemingly produced Torah Shebaal Peh. That's what it looks like, right? That's really another way of, articulating all the difficulties that we have. It looks like as if the rabbis are producing the Torah Shebaal Peh. Moshe Rabbeinu can't live in that reality because he gets it directly from the mouth of Hashem. He cannot live in this reality as if the Torah Shebaal Peh goes bottom up, like it's generated by the people. He can't live there. I don't want to call it an illusion because it's our reality, but he does not live in that reality of ours, which in our reality, we have the perceptions if we're Torah Shebaal Peh is being generated out of our minds and hearts and brought to fruition, Bapeh, put into words, and that's how it's projected, to become a psak halacha that we act on, or projected to give the Ribosh of Nachas Ruach from our Chidushei Torah. That's the Behaaloscha, how it's raised up. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu does not live in that reality. He lives in reality that everything is Dvar Hashem. Do you think Moshe Rabbeinu ever had a suffix? Moshe Rabbeinu never had a suffix, right? He gets it directly from the mouth of God, right? It's got nothing to, handle. Is it like this? Is it like that? Now, to be fair, Moshe Rabbeinu has permission, and the Rambam writes about this also. Moshe Rabbeinu is allowed to make Chidushei Torah if he wants, but you get, generally speaking, everything was just shown to him by God. So now this menorah represents Torah Shebaal Peh as we know it, Behaaloscha, that goes bottom up. We raise it up as if it starts here in our minds and hearts, and we produce these Chidushei Torah, and so it comes from the heart, head, heart, up to the mouth, Behaaloscha. For the mouth that comes out, it is raised up into the world to be a psak halacha that ruling, and higher up to Shamayim to give the Ribosh Shalom Nachas Ruach from our Chidushim, and even higher in Shamayim to argue with God and to paskin differently, right? So Nitzchuni Bonai. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't live in that bottom up reality of Behaaloscha Saneros, raising up, that the Ora Torah starts here. What do you mean? He can't live there, right? Because he knows he got it from the mouth of God and brought it to the earth. Right? That's the reality that he lives in. He does not live in the reality of Torah Shebaal Peh as we know it, because he heard it from the mouth of God and put it on earth. Right? And he knows, he's so attuned that it's all from Hashem. It's all from Hashem. So Yud Gimel Midas, and so he sees it all as it's all from Hashem, and Hashem is giving you a puzzle and the tools Yud Gimel Midas Shatron Dreshes B'hem, a Derech HaLimud, to decode the puzzle. He sees it all as Hashem setting this all up. So what's the menorah? That as if man is generating this light. He has a problem with the menorah in general. So I'm not saying that the pshuto is not emes. The pshuto is emes. They had a problem with the menorah because but the problem he has with menorah is parallel to a problem he has with Torah Shebaal Peh itself, right? And it's being the Torah of the people, the Torah that's in the people, right? Because he gets it from Hashem, right? So he doesn't live in this reality, right? And that's why he has this problem, right? That he has this mixture, right? Right? So, and now the Ribosh is not going to change his mind. The Ribosh is not going to mess with Moshe Rabbeinu's head because it's necessary for the cosmic balance, as we're going to explain, right? The Ribono Shel Olam, wants this mystery to exist. He doesn't want to dispel this mystery. He wants this called the mystery. He wants this duality. He wants it. And Moshe Rabbeinu's finding this all difficult is part of Shtelling Avek. Did I say that correctly? Right? Setting up, right? This whole mitzias of Torah Shebaal Peh, the way it really works. Listen to this, right? So he toiled a lot over the Torah, over the menorah, rather. Pun intended, because the menorah represents the Torah Shebaal, the Behaaloscha Torah, the Yagia on the menorah, right? He was Harbeis Yagea, right? A lot he toiled over the menorah. What does that sound like? Yagata umatzasa ta'amin. Yagata umatzasi ta'amin. Right? Megillah Yud, not Yud, Vav Amabez. Yagata umatzasi ta'amin. Right? Yagia, toiling, right? 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 So Harbeis Yagea Moshe ala menorah. Hashem is not stam torturing him, because Moshe Rabbeinu is setting things up cosmically of how it works. The way Moshe is with the menorah is setting up how Torah Shebaal Peh works. So Hashem is not torturing him, for no reason, right? Moshe Rabbeinu is stelling avek the Metzias of Torah Shebaal Peh, right? With the Maisa menorahs to shtel avek the Metzias of Torah Shebaal Peh. So it's Harbeis Yagea Moshe, Besod Yagati Umatzasi Ta'amin, right? So now everyone knows famous Chidush Harim, but he's probably not the only one that says it. Yagati Umatzasi is an oxymoron. Yagia is to work hard at it. That's like earning. What's a mitzvah? And I found mitzvah is what you get for free, right? Mitzvah is, and it comes out of nowhere. It's mitzvah is one of the Gimel Dvarma Boim Behesach Hadas. It comes out unexpected. So Yagia is to work towards something and earn it, and mitzvah is to get something for free and unexpected. It's Boim Behesach Hadas. So Yagia and Mitzia are an oxymoron. So the Chidush Harim explains, right, that's how Torah Shebaal Peh works, right? Hashem just wants you to work at it as if you are constructing, as if you're working at it means I'm producing it, I'm earning it, I'm working towards it, as if it's in my hands to do so, right? But ultimately it's a Mitzia. Comes out of nowhere. Just like pops into your head. Boom. Pops into your head. Right? So now, you worked at it, but in the end, it's because b'schus that you worked at it, it pops into your head. Now, of course, you can make the connection, assume it's a continuum. Because I worked at it, I got it. Right? Right? And then Moshe is playing this out to represent Am Yisrael. Right? I'm sorry, be Mitzyagian menorah, let it just pop into your head, right? So now there's two types of popped in the head, right? Right, right. There's like what you call, and that's why the Medrash brings these two things out as if they're not a stira, because there's two ways. It's ultimately a mitzvah. It's the menorah is making itself, as it were. Just we think we did it, and we get credit as if we did it because Hashem only gave it to us because we worked so hard. Because we are mitzvah, we are mitzvah. As much as that's an oxymoron, because we worked so hard for it, we got it for free out of nowhere. But it's two getting out of the free nowhere. Right? Anyone's actually done any creative thinking. There's two types of. There's two types of mitzvah, right? There's one that's mamish eureka moment, just pops into your head, right? Pops into your head, and now it's easier to distinguish between, because a lot of times we don't distinguish between the two. If all the toiling and thinking and grinding comes to the idea, so it's very easy to miss the subtle difference, But the best way to appreciate this, and as far as say this, it's how you work on a sugya so hard, and dafka when you're not thinking about it actively, the answer pops in your head. This is particularly true when you wake up in the morning. You worked on it the night before, and you wake up in the morning, boom, eureka, I got it, right? The eureka moment. That's where it's a lot more, noticeable that it's just a mitzvah. Came out of nowhere. That's like throwing it into the fire. Hashem just, I did all I can do, and the menorah just pops out from the fire fully formed. That's the eureka moment. And like we said, and there's also, and by the mashal that I gave from you wake up in the morning and it pops in your head is, that's mamish what the Sfarim explain, that your neshama went up to you worked on it so hard by the day, your neshama went to the Masifta, the Rakir, said, you worked on it so hard, we're going to tell you the answer. And then comes down when you wake up, boom. So that's the eureka moment, mitzia. Right? Where it looks like, you could, if you'd be honest, you'd be, wow, it just popped into my head. I worked on it, just popped. That's, and it's easier to appreciate it when you get it when you wake up in the morning, which is mamish the inyan of all the chidush Torah. We get up in the morning, in the schus of the yigiyah you did the day before, Shama goes up to Masifta Rakia, and they give you the answer. You worked hard, and now you deserve to hear the answer. You deserve to get the solution you're working for. But you could have something me'ains that if you've done thinking, that you work on it, and then you're just walking down the aisle in the supermarket, and boom, the answer pops into your head. So that's the eureka moment, and that's connected the bechina of how the menorah just popped out of the fire fully formed. But then there's like with the bang and hammer that you think, you constantly, you ground it, you grind it and grind it and grind it. And it seemed that, the thinking and the analysis actually directly led into the idea. That's what the bang and the hammer, right? That you don't feel the hefsek between the yagiyah and the mitzvah. You don't feel any hefsek. You can actually feel a connection. There's the bang of the hammer. But if you have to be honest, all you did was bang with the hammer. So it feels like you mamish refined the idea, like there was more of a hands-on. There wasn't a eureka moment that came separate from all the yagiyah. It came as a direct continuum of the yagiyah, but still it's a mitzvah. It's like all you do is bang with the hammer. If you be really honest, that last bang of the hammer, is not really what created the idea. That last bang of the hammer is what you had to do to be zeicha to the idea, but it took a bang of the hammer also. And it was like more of a direct connection between the yagiyah and the mitzvah. But either way, it's really all from Hashem, and Hashem puts it in your head and in your heart, right? Because of the yagiyah. There's two types of ways that happen, where it's just noifo barosh, and I guess the bigger chiddush, is when it's just noifo barosh, right? It just falls into your mind. Is the bigger chiddush that even then you'll get schar as if you created it, right? It happened when you woke up. It happened when you're walking down the supermarket. You still get schar as if you created the idea. No different than if you did the derech of thinking, with the final bang of the hammer, literally makar patish, and then the idea formed. There's a more direct connection between the yagiyah and the mitzvah. Equally chaviv v'fnei makom, because in either case you did the yagiyah, and equally a mitzvah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a mitzvah, right? Okay. But is there a mechanism to this? Right? Is there a mechanism to this? Right? You work and then your mindset, is it just every time it's a miracle? Or is there like a certain mechanics that yagiyah leads to mitzvah? Right? Right? So the Nefesh HaChaim in Shar Aleph explains, going back to the neshama, it's called Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. Right? Neshama is called a candle. The neshama is called a candle, right? Right. So and the Torah is called Ner Mitzvah Torah Or, and by Torah Shebaal Peh per se, the Gaon says this on Mishlei, but he's probably not the first one. Ki Ner Mitzvah is Torah Shebaal Peh, because we're reflected by the menorah. Ner Mitzvah, but Torah Or is the Torah Shebechsav. Ner Mitzvah, but Torah Or. Ner Mitzvah is Torah Shebaal Peh, and Torah Or is Torah Shebechsav, right? There is a mechanics that, there is a mechanical way to explain the yagiyah mitzvah continuum, even though they're not really a continuum in the most literal sense that the yagiyah produced it. It's yagiyah, but there is to explain how there is a cause and effect relationship between yagiyah and mitzvah, right? Because the neshama, right, the Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, is the koach for us to understand Torah. It's the koch of Hashem, and it's, we don't learn Torah with the brain only. The brain is the receiver from the ore of the neshama, and the ore of the neshama is because the Torah is ruchnius. How can you understand ruchnius? So what if it talks about gashmius things, but it's from heaven? So we have a neshama that's from heaven. So we have the ner Hashem nishmas adam that ties into the ner mitzvah, right? So it's because of that dveikus, right? Because of that dveikus, we're zocha to this mitzvah. Like, by what means does God give you this gift? By what means do you find? By what means? How did you find it? When you find a mitzvah, you saw it with your eyes, and then you ran to pick it up with your arms and legs, right? By what means do you apprehend the mitzvah of Torah? Through the neshama. The neshama taps into the dimensions that Torah is from, right? So because you did the yigir, Rebbe Shams, allows the neshama to tap in, but it's really the neshama tapping in. That's the mitzvah, right? The neshama tapping in, right? So you didn't construct this idea in the literal sense, right? But because you tried to, you worked so hard to understand, you worked so hard to construct this chiddush, okay, Rebbe say, okay, the neshama will now tap in, be davik in Torah, and pull the idea down, right? So either way, the mitzvah, there's a mechanics to the mitzvah. There's just like in a regular mitzvah, your eyes, saw it, and your arms and legs ran towards it, right? And so also your eyes and arms and legs to get this idea from Torah, to pick it up, is the neshama, right? And your neshama is allowed to spark up and tap in b'schus the yigiyah, right? So now you understand. So the Medrash is describing the yigiyah, yagati umatzasi tamin, mahalach harbeis yagiyah Moshe menorah to shtel avek the inyan for Klal Yisrael, to set up the inyan of yigiyah b'Torah. And then the menorah just happens. That's the mitzvah of Torah. And the two types of mitzvah, whether it comes in a eureka moment, like comes bechaloim, it comes when you wake up, it comes or whether it's with the more direct, with the hitting of the hammer, that's the makib patish that finished the idea, but didn't really finish the idea. It was the finale of what you did to earn the idea, right? It leads right into it. These two bechinas, right? But it's all mikoch that the yigiyah empowers and gives the neshama the right to tap in, and that's how you find it, through the koch of the neshama, which is the ner. Right, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that ties into the Ner mitzvah, and therefore that's why the Medrash ends off. It's Kishmak. It ends off. So because of this mechanics of the congruence, between the neshama and the Torah, that allows you. That's the mechanism to be moitzei. B'schus the yigiyah, the neshama is allowed to be moitzei, keep the mitzvahs of the Neros HaMa'aracha that represent Torah Shebaal Peh, and I will, which is the candle, and I'll guard your candle, and the candle taps into the candle. So you keep the one candle, it's a shmirah for the other, right? Right? I think we understand that. Okay, but we're not done. We're not done. So everyone knows the famous, Gemara of Rabbi Akiva and the Gemara of Menachos, Daf Chav Tes, that, Moshe Rabbeinu sees HaKadosh tying Ksarim L'Oisius. And he said, what's that for? Is that for Rabbi Akiva? That's got Darshan Kotes, Tilei Tilim Sha'alachis, right? And we spoke about this in our Maimer on Lag BaOmer. We spoke about this when a little bit earlier in the year when I was by the kever of Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, so so it says initially that Moshe didn't understand what he was saying, right? And then so when he heard said it was Rebbe Zuminag Halacha Moshe Misinai. Okay, so which Rashi says, I didn't make this up. It's Halacha Moshe Misinai that and seemingly Moshe Rabbeinu did not hear it yet from Hashem, that Halacha Moshe Misinai, right? Right. Right. But it's still fair, as we point out in this pamphlet I wrote up a few years ago, that I'm quoting from. It's still fair. If it's the type, it should be the type of thing Moshe Rabbeinu could understand. It should be that type of thing, right? You would think. because even if it's Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't actively taught it yet, it should be the type of thing he could understand, you could ask. No, but it also says more than that. There's a medicine by Midbarah Chukas, right? That that says, listen, things were revealed to Rabbi Akiva and his friends that they saw things that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't see. So it is still, entirely plausible, right? That, it's not the shot that Rabbi Akiva can't understand Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't understand. It's only because Moshe Rabbeinu heard it. That's not, we have to refine that, because we, again, have that Lashon in Chukas, right? In Babid Barabba and Chukas, right? That Dvarim Shlo Nigla Moshe, Nigla Rabbi Akiva, all glory saw his eyes, Rabbi Akiva and Chaverim, they saw things that weren't revealed to Moshe. So it's entirely plausible, right? That Rabbi Akiva can understand something Moshe Rabbeinu didn't understand, but Moshe Rabbeinu was still just calmed down that it's ultimately Halacha Moshe Sinai, and let's explain this, right? And then we'll understand what's going on with Bitzalo, right? Moshe Rabbeinu says in that Gemara, right? With Rabbi Akiva and Menachos, all right, Rebbe Shalom, give the Torah through him. Don't give the Torah through me. Look at he's an unbelievable guy, and he's and Moshe Rabbeinu said that even after hearing Rabbi Akiva say it's Halacha Moshe Sinai. Even after that. So it shows that Rabbi Akiva has a certain milah that Moshe Rabbeinu is jealous of. Because even after Rebbe Zumin Halacha Moshe Sinai, still Moshe Rabbeinu asks, Yesh Chadim Kazavat no saying Torah al Yadi. Right? And Hashem says, Shtoik, Kachol, quiet. What I'm doing is lefi my divine wisdom. The Sidrei Abriya that I want, like I said, everything that's happening with Moshe is setting up realities for Klal Yisrael. So Moshe Rabbeinu, says this guy has better understanding, whatever you want, seemingly. But still, Hashem gives the Torah through Moshe. Hashem gives the Torah through Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one and only vehicle to bring Torah to earth. Moshe Rabbeinu was that vehicle, and with his bringing the Torah to earth, that established that corridor from heaven to earth, that we can always draw down new divrei Torah from heaven as is necessary, right? Moshe Rabbeinu is the mitzias of the tzinor that brings Torah to earth, right? Right? He is the mitzias of Torah, right? The mitzias of Torah coming from heaven to earth. That's all. That's Mushash and Moshe Rabbeinu. Without Moshe Rabbeinu creating that, that precedent, Torah would have gone obsolete. And he didn't create just for himself. He created for all generations. And that's the secret. That I feel Mashatav Basik Shol Rabo. Everything was Nigla and Moshe Sinai. Even Mikra Megillah is Nigla and Moshe Sinai. Everything was Nigla, revealed, displayed before him. Doesn't mean he was commanded to say it over. He said over to Klal Yisrael, he was commanded to say over, right? And it doesn't mean he understood it either, necessarily, la'omko, but everything was displayed before him, right? To bring Torah to earth. He's that vehicle that puts Torah on earth. Puts Torah on earth. He is that vehicle. And without that, we have nothing, right? Without that, after Moshe Rabbeinu died, Torah would have gone obsolete. And yet we have that we're constantly pulling down, and that's another example of it in this week's Parshas Behaaloscha, the Pesach Sheni, that Am Yisrael, they were determined to have Lama Nigora, they were determined to have a supplement for Korban Pesach, and they pulled it down. They get schus, they get schar, as if they're the ones who, were macharish that parsha, even though it comes through Moshe, but it means that Moshe Rabbeinu establishes, makes that conduit, between Shamayim and Arts for Gilu Yatera, and because it's in place, we can tug on that conduit. So they pulled on it, and they caused Moshe Rabbeinu to get a nevuah. And even after Moshe Rabbeinu's istalkos, Moshe Rabbeinu is secretively facilitating the transfer of Torah to earth, and that's what it means. Everything had to be revealed to Moshe for it to have a shaychus to coming down to earth. Whether Moshe Rabbeinu fully understood it or not, he still is that tzinor to bring those divrei Torah to earth. He is forever that tzinor, right? whether he understands it or not. He's the tziner of all divrei Torah. Right? That's what it means. Rabbi Akiva says, Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who brought it down. But even after Moshe Rabbeinu brings it down, to bring it down, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't necessarily have to have his own Havana in it. He has to be the tziner to bring it down. Right? And Rabbi Akiva can have a better Havana in it than Moshe Rabbeinu. There's no, right? But in the end, Rabbi Akiva only has it because of Moshe Rabbeinu. He only has it because of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu said, he has better Havana, give it through him. No, I want it this way. Kach olafanai b'machshava, right? Kach olafanai b'machshava, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, you're the tziner for Torah. You're the tziner for Torah. And that's what Rabbi Akiva says, halacha Moshe b'Sinai, even though it doesn't necessarily mean that, even after Moshe Rabbeinu learned it from Hashem, that he understood just as good as Rabbi Akiva necessarily. I know those who argue, but I'm saying you can easily say that Rabbi Akiva always had, as a word, for lack of a better word, a better Havana. There's a lechem on this way. He doesn't like saying it that way. He says something else. But there's no sin in saying this. But what we do have to say is Rabbi Akiva only had what he had because of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is the tziner to bring all the Torah of all generations to earth. Rabbi Akiva only had it b'schus Moshe Rabbeinu to create the conduit to bring it to earth. Right? Okay. So there's another bechina over here. This medrash with Bezalel. Bezalel is a precursor to Rabbi Akiva. Right? Making Moshe Rabbeinu learn this. Right? He keeps on forgetting, and he doesn't understand. Right? And then he goes to Bezalel, and Bezalel makes it. What's the pshat? You know why Bezalel could make it? Because Moshe Rabbeinu learned it and learned it and learned it. Was in this yageh on it that brought it to earth. And because that's what brought it to earth, now Bezalel could make it. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu says to Bezalel, Davar nifla ma'od. You are Betzel Kel. Right? Right? You're just in the shadow. You're in the shadow, right? You're in the shadow of Hashem when he was teaching me. Meaning Hashem was teaching it to me, right? Makes no difference whether I chapped it or not. But by teaching it to me, right? That's what puts it in Klal Yisrael. That's what puts it in Klal Yisrael, right? You must have been in the shadow when Hashem was teaching me, right? Right? And that's why you were able to pick up on it. So you were in the shadow. Now, what's the shadow? Shadow is not the prime object. Shadow is a product. You are in the shadow, right? And you're in the shadows. You're a shadow, right? So I'm the prime object. Me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that interaction is the prime object. You're the shadow, right? The derivative, right? Now, you might think you thought of it yourself. Or you chapped immediately. But you know why you have it? The shadow only has what the prime object, the movements of the prime object. Now, if a shadow would be endowed with its own intelligence, right, but not free will, right? Not free will, obviously. If a shadow would be a shadow, but have intelligence, it might think it's making its own movements when it's not really making its own movements at all. It's just mimicking the prime object, right? But the shadow might think, I'm moving. It's not really. It's moving mikoch, the prime object that's casting the shadow. So that's why I say, all you and your Havana, right? It's all from being in the shadows, right? The shadows of the interaction between me and Hashem. And that's even you with your Havana. It comes mikoch, the interaction between me and Hashem. And now you may have a Havana that I don't have, but it's just a shadow, playing out, and you're zocha to have a Havana, right? But you're just playing out and playing out what that interaction that there was between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If we just see the shadows, right? Like if the later generations are all shadows of Moshe Rabbeinu, so we see the shadow, we don't see the prime object. So we deal with it as if it's the Chidushei Torah of these chachamim, right? But they're all shadows, and their Havana is all that they're playing out. Now, they're zocha to Havana because maybe the Divrei Torah were more meant for them and for the seichel of their door, right? But in the end, they're just shadows acting out, from the interactions, shadows of the interactions of Hashem being mashpia to Moshe all those, eons ago, if that's the right word, right? So it's a davar nifla. So that's another bechina of Torah Shebaal Peh. Moshe Rabbeinu is makabel the Torah, whether he understands it or not. He's makabel the Torah for all generations, and all the other generations are, going through the motions. They are the shadows of that interaction that Hashem had with Moshe and giving him those divrei Torah. And like I said, the Havana could be special for that door, right? Because the divrei Torah of that door, but that door is just the shadow of the interactions of Hashem being mashpia those divrei Torah to Moshe, right? And think about this, and you could ask me about this. You can reach out for me for more clarifications, right? But so now you understand, right? So you understand first of all what happened over there with Rabbi Kiva, and so Rabbi Kiva has Havana that Moshe doesn't have, and Rabbi Kiva's Moida. It's all b'schus Moshe. Halacha Moshe mitzileh. If not that Moshe got this from Sinai, I would not have these Havanas. So Moshe calms down that I'm the one that facilitated it, right? But still, Moshe still Moida that Rabbi Kiva has better Havana than him, and Hashem says still, I want these mechanics. You are the tzinor of divrei Torah coming to earth for all generations, and I want it that way. You are chosen to be the tzinor, right? Forget about the Rekiva may have Havana you don't have. Lamasa, you're the tzinor, and Rekiva acknowledges Moshe was the tzinor to facilitate this, but the Havana was special for the door of Rabbi Akiva, for the neshama of Rabbi Akiva. But what the Chachmei Hador are zochet to in every door and door is all the shadow playing out the interactions of the prime object, which was Tzel Kel, the shadow of Hashem interacting with Moshe. Right? They are the shadow of that, of Hashem interacting with Moshe. Okay. So now we come to the final lefikach, right? And therefore the menorah was nignaz and not destroyed. That's the side of Nitzchia Satera. We go down in Madrega, and our Doris, promise, art schools make us permanently retarded, whatever, and hopefully despite art scroll making us retarded, hopefully despite, right? We could be Machadish Torah in all generations, no matter how bad things get. The menorah wasn't Nechrab, it wasn't Nichbash, it was Nignaz. The menorah, the Or of Torah Shebaal Peh, that Moshe read, how Moshe Rabbeinu toiled over it, is he did the Yegiah for us. And in this context, the Yegiah to be Zoche, to bring it to earth. The Divrei Torah are accessible on earth. No matter where we go, where we falter, we'll always draw out the real answer. We'll always pull it out. We'll pull it out. We'll somehow find it. Right, will be ma'orer those divrei Torah. That's what means the menorah, which represents Torah Shebaal Peh, is nignaz. It's not nechrab. It's not nechbash. It's there. It's shining wherever it is. The Or of Torah Shebaal Peh is shining within us. We have to work to access it, and we can be sure that we'll get it. We will be the shadows of how we will shadow how Hashem already revealed this to Moshe. Whether Moshe Rabbeinu understood it or not, but was already revealed to Moshe, is already put on earth by that means, and we will shadow that interaction. And who knows, when we're zochet to be the shadow of that interaction, maybe we'll have a certain havana that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have, because those were the divrei Torah for our door. Those were the divrei Torah to be our seichel. They were meant for us in particular. Moshe Rabbeinu was the vehicle to bring it all to earth. Deep stuff. Right, and there's a lot for to think more about this. Rosh Hashanah help discuss these divrei Torah. First of all, should continue to be zochet to Nitzchia Satera, right? The koach of Torah Shebaal Peh, which is through Yegiah. So everyone, get rid of your art scrolls, right? Through Yegiah, it's only Yagati Umatzasi Arbenis Yegiah Moshe, right? And art scroll is Chazer Treif. Right, let's just say it. Okay, let's just say it. I have no patience, right? I have no patience. It's chazer treif. The agreement was that would only be for people that mamish cannot get a yeshiva education. That was the agreement, which was broken, right? And there's no Rachmanis here. There's no Rachmanis here. It's making Am Yisrael retarded, right? It's the Yagiyah that's causes the Metzia. And if you're not going to be in the Siyagea, you're a piece of dirt. Really, Roshel Marokim Malcha Sapra Chuki. The Reitar is only Nikna Biyagiyah. I have no way. Sorry. And we're supposed to getting that message across. That'll be the real refuah for Ya'akov ben Rinah and for all Holy Yisrael, because we're talking about being Marapah, the Holy of Am Yisrael. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbos. Behaaloscha saneros, to raise up the Chidushay Torah Shebaal Peh, the Yegia B'Torah. Okay? All right. A good Shabbos, everybody.